All right, so I guess we'll get started if people are ready. All right, let's take a look at our agenda. Our public hearing has been withdrawn, so I guess there's no need to open the public hearing on case 18010 VA. I guess we will open the public meeting for bylaws and procedures approved. So everybody who's present has had a chance to sign the bylaws. I guess we'll hold this in the office and ask others to drop in. All right. So also take note that the select board, I believe last week, yeah, that would be last Monday, adopted a new policy, which will affect many of the cases that we see. And so I think the best place to start is on the back page of that, where there's a application process. So it starts with an applicant who's on a private or a class 6 road applying for a building permit. And then they also, that triggers a request to the select board, and that triggers for them a list of documentation that they need to provide to the planning board and the select board. And that criteria is stated in Part 5A, B, C, and D. They're looking for specific information about the road, ownership of the road, who's maintaining the road, and has responsibility for maintaining the road. D, other. And so at that point, it would be a two-pronged process. So they'll be going through select board, planning board approvals, and then they'll also be coming forth to us. We have a much lower threshold for granting approvals, but it's also required currently under our zoning ordinance. That's something that in the future the planning board may wish to change, taking that off of our plate since they're taking it on and the select board are. So that's, but for the meantime, until the zoning ordinance changes, it's a dual process. So they could come back to us, and they continue through with the select boards / planning board, depending on the scope of the project.
So,
Yep.
are you saying that when the case comes to us, it would already have been approved
Nope.
by another board?
No, it'll be under process by the other board. The other board,
Simultaneously?
correct, the other board's waiting for us. If we deny, the other board's gonna say, well, you're done, you didn't meet the lower criteria, I don't know how you're gonna meet our criteria. So if we do approve, then their process continues. And this is the awkward piece, is that then if the select board denies, then we're the first board of appeals. But we will have the notice of decision and the criteria by which they failed first time. Correct. But I'm guessing that if all that information is available to the select board at the building permit approval process, it'll be in our packets, and we'll get sight of it for our project, I mean, for our part of it.
So who's going to be the recipient of all of that information for this, that the select board is requiring? Is that you to start with? Because they will initially be going to the planning and zoning board?
That's my understanding, yes, but I haven't yet followed through. This is a bunch of but meeting with Chris, I can send them the policy, and have them those steps. I did the select board portion, planning board their portion. And if any of it is met, before you guys meet, you receive that information.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
Certain.
So on the first page, maybe 2/3 of the way down, under exemptions and prior approvals, the letter C, policy 67441. The last sentence says, these are roads shown on a subdivision plan as approved by the select board or zoning board of adjustment for 1971. I really think there's only one adjustment, approved subdivision plans. And in most of these towns out there, they will probably not be in 1971. It's around the time zoning was coming in. So I'm wondering if that's a typo or it's,
It could have been either board granting it. The way it's written, it's either or.
but zoning boards don't. do subdivision. You don't do anything.
Not currently. I don't know what happened in 70s.
In 71, I think that's when we got some.
No, I think we had zoning in the 60s. We had zoning pretty early on in Nottingham.
60s?
Yeah.
I think we did too, sometime. Between the mid-60s to the mid-70s.
But I think it looks like the town did its due diligence, and its roads with known prior approval are listed below. Zoning requirements still apply. So there's a list of the roads that it would apply to in town as exempt. Any other questions that I can answer on that for anybody?
Well, back in June 19th, we had this discussion, and it's on our meeting notice, and it says, suggestion to ultimately make the zoning board of adjustment the appeal process after review of the board of selectmen. And what you just said is that zoning board would be first, lower level, et cetera. In order to change that, and I'm not sure if the requirement is still to change that,
That's up to the
the
plan.
zoning ordinance needs to change, and then that could be adopted if that's the way.
Right, if there's a zoning ordinance change, then they need to respond and change their policy.
So the question is, is that going to be initiated? Is it the desirement? Do we initiate that?
No, planning board is our legislative body. The planning board would be, with input from us, but the planning board would be the ones to initiate that change.
Okay. So do they have the appropriate input from us that prudent to do? Or do we already know they're already planning a
I haven't
change?
talked to the planning board chair about that.
I see.
I don't know.
Would that be in your job to do?
If this board feels strongly that we should change it, I'm seeing one head nod yes.
And I think you were, at least my interpretation of this conversation is that you were in favor of that.
Yeah.
I'm also in favor of that.
Okay.
So
How do you feel about that, Terry?
That's fine with me.
I mean, if they have to meet harder criteria through a different process, then we should step aside.
I agree, and I, one of the reasons I'm saying yes to it is because there's a lot of hoops for them to jump for this, and it seems like it would be hugely burdensome, if you will, for a member of our town to have to go and pay for all of the hearing notifications to meet with us, and then again for the select board and planning board, and it just seems like
And then
it's-
maybe a third time if they get a denial.
Yeah, I just think that's really unreasonable.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so you guys want me to initiate contact with the town manager and planning board?
Please.
And say, let's make that a priority in our CO change for this year?
Would you like that as a motion?
I don't think we
Does it
need to
need to
make a
be?
motion. I think we have a consensus, and I'm
Okay.
not going to subvert the will of the board knowingly. I'll take care of that. Do you guys want me to CC you on the email? Can do that?
If it's easy
Then you
enough
know
for
I'm
you?
being honest. Yeah, I can do that. That's easy. Yeah.
And Bonnie, in looking over your question about the section C with the roads, I pulled it up in the gray book. And this is almost word for word, what is on there, with the exception of zoning board and the date. So I I'm guessing on this, but I think those dates must have been looked up and added
Yeah,
to
it's-
this.
It's not the date, it's that zoning boards were only formed because of zoning. They really had ZBAs before zoning. And I don't, in my memory, I've never known of a zoning board having anything to do with subdivision.
That's word for word. In our state book, the planning and, New Hampshire Planning and Zoning, book, it says, is an existing street constructed prior to the effective date of this subparagraph and is shown on a subdivision plat that was approved by the local governing body or zoning board of adjustment before the municipality authorized the planning board, blah, blah, blah. So those words are from this RSA,
Yeah.
with the exception of the dates. I'm sure they do, which is why they weren't included in the RSA.
That's interesting, I'm glad we don't do subdivision anymore.
Any other comments on the select board process? All right. We can move on to meeting minutes.
These have been passed around and edited. Do you want a motion to approve them? Or do people still need time to look at them?
We didn't get them back after they were edited.
Joanna, did you send them out after they were edited? I think you did.
Yeah, I think they
They're
came
right here,
around.
Bonnie. Yep.
Seems to be several here, does anybody else want?
No, they're all of different dates.
Those three different packets.
Got it.
I think I followed the commentary as it came in on the email trail. I don't recall anything sticking out and needing my comments, so.
I move to approve the June 19th, 2018 minutes as written and edited.
Second. All in favor? All right, I'm passed. I did not yet. Probably should do that now. Thank you.
I don't know if that was 4 or 3.
So in the absence of Peter White, I'd like to have Kevin, and Kathy Bowles, I'd like to have Kevin Bassett be seated. Thank you for showing up.
Revote? Should we revote then?
The motion for the minutes was that 4-0 or 3-0?
It was
I mean, 4 or 5?
I think
It was
it was,
five.
it was all
I think it was
five.
5.
5. I saw Bonnie's hand up. What date is that?
This one's
21st?
the 21st, and
Oh,
I
oh,
really would like to make sure it has the kinds of reasons that we do not
okay.
the applicant.
Need a few more minutes. I think I did.
Since we didn't mention the notice of decision, it's important that we do
But Bonnie, it's all on tape. And everything was in your fact-finding sheets as well. I think, my opinion with minutes is they're supposed to give you the overview of the meeting. We already have it on videotape, and we have it on audio tape, and then we have our fact-finding. If we burden the minutes with he said, she said, and all of that, they're going to be too cumbersome, and everybody's going to be saying,
I'm not talking about that kind of detail, I'm talking about reasons for and make sure those reasons are.
but you didn't state specific reasons in your denial when you gave your motion, and that's where that would go.
No, I agree.
That,
I did get advice from our attorney, and we will be undergoing a different process from now on in terms of how we vote. The way, I couldn't remember why we started with those notice of our fact-finding sheets, but the attorney said that's not a good practice and not necessary. It started a long time ago and it just came forward. And so he says what that does is it tends to separate the board when the board should be together, or at least their voice should be together. And so I think what we're going to do from now on is we're going to vote on the 5 criteria individually. And then any of the, so you have to meet all 5 in order for your variance approval to go through. If you don't meet all 5, you're denied. So that way, one of the criteria will then stand out clearly as why the applicant failed, and we'll get that in the notice of decision. So it'll clean up the piece that Bonnie's talking about, and it'll sew us together more seamlessly as a board. Does that make sense, everybody?
I like that idea.
so we're not going to do the,
We do the 5 criteria, but we all vote.
but we don't write them, we don't write them down like we,
Correct.
I think.
So
that-
essentially-
So our discussion will then be about, we'll talk about criteria 1, then we'll have a vote. And if they pass that, we go on to criteria 2. If they don't pass criteria 1, it's done. Right, so we go through each criteria, there's a vote of majority each time, and then that way it'll capture in our minutes more clearly our discussion on each of the 5 criteria.
It sounds like it will really clarify
Yeah.
the process. It's kind of what should be in the record, you know.
Right.
So,
No, I
I
think
don't
it'll
know if
be-
you want me to go over this tonight, or if we could vote on this maybe the next time.
Well,
Because
this
I
for the
read it
21st
before
or the
I read notice of
23rd?
Decision, and really was not looking for any information about the notice of decision. I found it looking for something else. Oops. And this, so I just want to make sure it's in the minutes.
Joanna did tell you where to find it though, Bonnie,
Where to find what?
the notice of decision.
She sent it to me, yeah, but the notice of decision does not contain what the law requires it to contain. It says you fail to put that in the notice of decision. I want to make sure it's in the minutes.
no, so we should definitely have voted on August 21st and 23rd minutes before we close up for the evening. I think that's due diligence for our process.
Voting on June 19th.
You already did.
Right, but that, so our rehearing request specifically addresses commentary from the 21st
Then I'm going to ask
and the
everybody to
23rd.
read through these, and those of us especially who the attorney is addressing in his motion have our opinion, which I remember stating clearly about hardship. I remember you saying you didn't see the hardship. I remember Evan making statements that aren't probably, I'd rather not. The
Sure.
record be just the attorney's motion.
Are you done with that other set? I'll take the 21st.
Sorry.
Okay.
So, have with you, in this five criteria.
Do you want me to go get it just to hand it to you in paper, or do you want me to read it?
I don't mind reading it off, and I'll just, what's that? That'll save you a mile walk.
I don't mind.
I can go get it. I need to walk.
I think that, we had that hearing tonight, didn't
No. I'll just go get it.
Still discuss August 21, perhaps, or?
No, she's got August 21. I've finished with August 23rd. Did you want to see August 23rd, or do you have that?
No, I have it.
Okay.
I have a question on August 21. Line 116.
you? Line 16?
116.
Just curious if that conversation you had was pertinent to the,
Because we voted on it twice, remember, Gavin?
yeah, I remember what happened, but it says legal advice will be sought. Conversation you just mentioned about.
I don't think so. No, but we did.
No,
legal
I
advice and-
asked about our process because I'd never encountered that before in terms of we voted to deny and that didn't pass. So that meant that the issue was still live. And that was kind of
I
how
didn't
we
read it, it's in our
thought that it
books.
went. And I verified with legal counsel and
Okay,
that's how.
so you're good with that? Okay.
Yes.
We also received legal counsel about what constitutes hardship and what doesn't.
Thank
And
you.
our attorney very clearly said the reasons they were stating what did not constitute hardship. Whether it was on the plastics relevant, things that had nothing to do with his lot. I'm sorry you didn't see that.
No, I saw
You
that,
saw that, okay.
but this was in action after that fact, that's all. And,
Actually, no, I think we got all the legal advice at the same time, didn't we, Mike?
I think we had it in writing that
We
night.
had it in writing about the first tie vote, and then in that same communication, we had information about hardship. Advice from our attorney, which said, they're not demonstrating hardship in their application.
so that was between the 21st and the 23rd then?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yes.
got it, okay. Yep, that's fine.
Bonnie and Mike, the 5 criteria are also in our RSA book on page 410. Oh, okay.
Good at this time of night. As I remember, I think that somebody, one of the three of us mentioned that the spirit of the ordinance is not doing so because the master plan is, one of its goals is to keep the rural character. And the buildings would then be so close that it would be like an alleyway between a couple of them. So it's more like Cambridge than Nottingham. And then the other one was hardship, just didn't satisfy several of us that there was any hardship. And then another one was what the values of the surrounding properties. That was a big discussion, but it would have been nice if that's in the minutes. But think the hardship should be in the minutes somewhere. The fact that some of us didn't think hardship was proven, I think the three of us that voted, I don't know where it should go in here because I didn't write the minutes. So like in,
August 23rd, line 29. Although this was mentioned during the discussion, it was not mentioned as a purchase decision. Mr. Bassett stated that he was leaning more toward denial based on the fact that although the hardships are reasonable, the current dwelling is in livable condition. So that was mentioned.
okay, so I hadn't even seen this. I didn't know it was out here, floating around. So you know, it states that we got a legal opinion, but I think that on this sentence, 1819, the board received a legal opinion regarding the tied vote from Tuesday and the question on what constitutes hardship, that the attorney advised us that the statements made on the application were not valid hardship.
If you want, I can find one that because
That's before I saw the notice of decision and learned that we had to give the reasons. That's the only reason I'm thinking of
opinion
these.
is in the file too, so, but I can add what you just stated.
I would-
But the attorney's opinion is not public, is it?
I was informed since it was pertaining to this case that it was public. So it's up to you as a board.
I still
I mean,
would like
Well,
to
and
think
if you're
it was-
putting it in the minutes, it's going to be public.
Well, it's, to me,
the verbatim
if we, I mean, we're open that we received advice on what constitutes hardship for, from our attorney,
Mhm,
and then we voted.
mhm.
And then and it specifically states in this handout that she just brought us, that there's gonna be conflicting, even from expert testimonies on both sides. It's up to us to decide. And then we did,
We did, on the advice of our attorney, who,
and our own experience.
so I would like, could we have that added under 18? It just says that we got advice from our attorney on hardship. It doesn't say anything further.
I think that's sufficient.
This doesn't say that that's one of the reasons we denied it. I'm trying to focus on the 5 criteria,
Correct.
some of which were the reasons we denied it. They weren't the things that the attorney's bringing up about the neighbors showing up.
Right,
They were the 5
I
criteria.
understand.
And I would like the minutes to reflect that.
I think it does say that we received advice from our attorney about hardship, and then we made our informed decision based on that. I mean,
It
that's.
doesn't say that. It doesn't say anything that we.
No,
our
but that's
decision is
what the
based on
process of the
hardship.
board does. It doesn't matter what the attorney said. The attorney said what he said about hardship, and it was a 3-2 vote. We disagreed. But 3 votes were a denial. I mean, that's the meat and potatoes of why this board exists, to act as that safety valve and be that balance. To me, what the attorney said just codified my thoughts. It didn't change my mind, it just made me say, yeah, I'm not off base.
Right, because we had a discussion before that we were having a hard time seeing the argument for hardship was weak. And this, we got an opinion from our attorney on what constitutes hardship. This doesn't say that. Nowhere does it say that. Hardship was one of the reasons we.
I think the standing of our vote is enough. I mean, we can, what's the process?
I mean, if we had put it in the notice of decision,
Right.
then I'd feel fine about it.
Bonnie, you do actually have because of the 5 criteria, the 5th one mentions that little enforcement would result in unnecessary hardship. You've got the hardship piece right there in number 5. So, I mean, that is, you've said that he didn't meet the 5 criteria. So that sums it all
Right,
up.
that sums it up. He didn't meet the 5 criteria.
Right, which is
So
perfectly.
What line is that? What line is that?
That was in your motion at the end, right?
Yeah, you said exactly, your last word in the denial was that he failed to meet the 5 criteria. I think adding any more and trying to fit what you want to be in there
Right.
when you've already
Tell me
specified
what
the.
number that is.
I-
What number, is it on this one? Maybe this one, this is the last
No,
page.
it's
No,
in the
this
last
is-
one,
That's this
the 23rd.
That's a different page. Oh, this is the 21st.
You want the
You have
23rd.
the, you have the 23rd, I think.
one.
There you go.
Yeah, it's what
There you go.
what I said to you like 20 minutes ago. It was in your motion.
And just so you all are aware, I have always, since I've been doing this, put the notice of decision is verbatim, with quotes, your motion. If you want more added to it, you've got to say it.
All right, no, that's good.
Because that's what the applicant's going to be hearing. Why
Right.
would I send them anything?
Right, and I think,
Because otherwise, I'm inferring from all of your guys' discussion what you want the applicant.
And it's not her place to do that.
no, I agree with that. So I think with our new process, I think what is, going forward, our new process will make it much clearer, and our motion will say exactly, we'll just be more careful with our motion and say what part of the vote they failed on.
Yes.
And that'll show up more clearly.
To be all the more careful, if you want, I can submit one finding facts form so that the motion is written out and then read off.
I think that's all the recommended in the.
That's why I'm saying it. That way there's no error on the.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's on all of us.
Documents and documents.
Right, no, it's on all of us, that's better. Yeah.
That's what I'm having a planning board do now, what you sense is, and I can forward to you guys as well. Oftentimes, conditions can get lost, sunset clauses get lost, so instead of losing anything, we've written it out, we've verified it, and then you see it.
Just like you have at the town meeting.
Yes, that's what I was just gonna say, that. Do that at town meeting.
You can't make an amendment, you need to put it in writing,
Change anything, it's in writing.
and it needs to be second.
And that way, everybody's clear.
All right,
So that's why the notice of decision sounded a little, because I put it in verbatim.
okay.
You know, it's interesting though, I've not seen, I guess it is in the motion. Say for the 5, they feel that for the 5 criteria, that's in the motion.
In the motion.
That's what
and
you
it
said.
States in the notice of decision.
The exact motion.
Yep, and it says, motion made by, on, it's exactly what you see on these last 2 lines of the minutes. Cut and paste it. Seconded by Mr. Russo.
It's the 23rd, there you go. It's on the other side.
The other side.
Can we finish our meeting minute adoptions?
I'll let her move on these.
Sure. Would you like to make the motion?
Not at this time.
All right.
Go ahead, Terry. Or Kevin. I'm not.
Meetings of August 21st, so I'll make that motion to accept them as written.
Second? Second by Harry? All in favor? Teresa, are you going to
Are you in
vote?
favor?
Yeah, Joanna's minutes are fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
On to the 23rd.
I move we accept the minutes of August 23rd, 2018 as written and amended.
All in favor? It's 5-0. I hear you clacking away over there. All right.
So just to rehash what you were suggesting, motion is made, it's written down, restated, then we vote?
And do you write it down, or does the
I would prefer the motion maker just like at the meeting, that way I'm not missing anything. Especially when I have people talking back there.
Right. No, that's fine.
A lot. And
especially in
then
that kind of
these-
period when we had a full house?
These, yeah, And these microphones are terrible. We're looking at getting a system that they have.
So I think it'll fall to the board chair, and I'll put it in writing, and then read it back, and then we'll vote. Does that sound good?
Just wanted,
All right. I'll just have to make sure Peter isn't talking at me while I'm trying to write, because I can't do both. All right. Literally have a problem. All right, so our last item of business was not on the agenda, but we have received a request for rehearing. Has everybody had a chance to read that? Anybody want to start discussion on that? I think, what are our criteria for rehearing? So it's new information, or if the board feels that they made an error? I think we've had a discussion this evening that we're going to put more effort. I don't think we made an error, but I think we're going to put more effort into our notices of decision. But obviously, our notice of its decision was enough for them to respond. So I think we're good in this case. They can't claim that they didn't understand. So my personal feeling is I agree with some of the points that the attorney is making, but if you follow his whole train of, and keep in mind that this attorney is paid by the client to argue in his favor, that if you follow his entire chain of logic, any application before us would get approved. And with that, I disagree.
I didn't see any supporting evidence to us to consider the 5 criteria.
Correct.
I didn't see any ways possible to help frontage, et cetera.
Yeah, this has a very narrow, singular focus, which is the only criteria is that he doesn't have frontage on a Class 5 road.
That's all he came in for.
Exactly.
That was his whole variance.
Correct, but that's the trigger by which he comes to us. If he wasn't there, this goes back to that Malachi Glen case. We can't use that as the reason that we deny him, and we didn't. So so if he had 10 acres on another place, on a Class 5 road, on Garland Road, if he had 5 acres, he wouldn't be before us, right? The reason he was before us is because he has a substandard lot under 2 acres, or a non-conforming lot on 2 acres, and it's also on a Class 6 road, or it's on a private road. And so that triggers the board's action, and our action is then to use the 5 criteria to grant the variance. And we have to be the balance or the safety valve by which we say we have to look at those 5 criteria. And I think we did that thoroughly. I think we followed that process.
You also have to look at, I mean, again, I go back to our zoning, our RSA book. It says in order to establish unnecessary hardship for variance purposes, an applicant needs to show that zoning interfered with the reasonable use of the property, considering its unique setting and its environment, which is what he was doing. That's exactly what he was doing.
That's his case, but he didn't convince 3 of us that it was a
He has a
reasonable
reasonable use
use.
of it.
Reasonable is a judgment.
Yeah, especially when you're telling somebody whether or not their home is adequate. We should not be judging whether or not a person's home is adequate.
So I don't think that's what we're doing.
Well, that's exactly what Kevin
What
Bassett
Kevin
said, word verbatim, your home is adequate.
So
This
that's,
was on Kevin, there were 3 of us.
No,
Right.
he said nobody said it. I'm just saying that Kevin did. Yes, I realize there are 3 of you that voted against, but not, you two didn't say that his home was adequate. You said that it would be too large and it would interfere with the other people's homes, and the both of you said that. But Kevin is the one who said his home was adequate.
Well, I think
That's
what
all
Kevin
I'm saying
meant-
there.
I think what Kevin meant is that he
It-
has
You can't
a
say what
reasonable-
Kevin meant, because you aren't in Kevin's head, so please don't even go there.
As I understood Kevin, he was referring to the fact that
Pointing.
by not allowing a variance, we would be prohibiting him from a reasonable use of his property. He already has a reasonable use. He has a 3 or 4 bedroom house on it. He could rebuild that without coming before this board.
But what about,
That's his right, not what the
That-
attorney's saying that he has.
Kevin
the right.
said, he's already got a house, it's not a hardship, if he wants to rebuild it, yeah, if he wants to tear it down and rebuild it, that's not a, that's not a hardship. So he was,
To me, if he
and
had,
that's what he said.
the way I took Kevin's thing, I mean, was if if you had an empty lot,
we shouldn't be going there because we can't go with what's in his head.
But if it was an
we're talking about
empty
case
lot.
by case. This says that we have to look at,
the unique characteristics.
it doesn't say unique characteristics. It says the applicant needs to show that zoning interfered with the reasonable use of the property, considering its unique setting and its environment. His unique setting is that it's on a private road. And zoning is prohibiting him from using it. That is an unnecessary hardship.
So
How is it not?
The unique setting isn't only about his property. The unique setting is the surrounding his property. That's part of the unique
Which is the
setting.
private road.
No, it's also
No.
his neighbors, his
In
abutters.
5A2, it says how the proposal would affect neighboring properties.
Yes, it does. It does say that. It does mention that
But
it's,
he wasn't doing anything, he wasn't asking for a less than 20 feet, he was already at 20 feet, so he wasn't.
Exactly.
So those areas, we should have never, I think what the attorney is pointing out here in the reconsideration is we should have not, we should have stayed with just that, his application because it was on a private road. He wasn't asking for 18 feet from the line, so he wasn't affecting the neighbors any more than,
And that's where we disagree.
Well-
I think he is affecting the neighbors. When you create
but
a
he could go up to
situation.
20 feet
I agree.
legally. He wasn't in here for a variance.
I get that. He can do that legally, the way our zoning ordinance is currently written, right? But what he's creating is it's like going to New York City. You're creating an alley.
Putting a skyscraper in downtown here.
I think we're rehashing the
That's
same
what it
arguments
is.
we
Right,
made
so-
at
so-
the hearing. I don't
exactly.
hear anything new coming up.
So that's, to me, that's what triggers, do we offer a rehearing? I mean, I'm seeing the same feelings from the board. I don't think we missed anything. I think we dug into all those details with the applicant.
Most of us went down there.
Could I have
At
a
least I
little,
went down there twice.
could I have a little guidance?
Sure.
5 criteria is what we go on, but how much does the neighbors play into that equation? Because he says 0. But we invite them, we hear their
Correct.
yeas and nays.
Right.
Isn't it number 6? Part of that decision-making, our neighbors, the applicant's neighbors?
It shouldn't be. I mean, we're supposed to be like the Supreme Court. You're supposed to be blind to that. It's not a popularity
And why
contest.
are they even involved in
But
the
because it
process?
affects their properties, and
Right.
we're dealing with property rights.
Right,
That's what I
we're to
think.
balance.
Well-
It's not about whether they want or don't want, but it's
Are they-
what he's going to do to
Are
the
they
quality of their life.
involved in our
because of what he's
decision,
doing.
or aren't they involved in
I
our
think,
decision?
I think their concerns for their property values are a legitimate part of what we should consider
True.
and use that, which I think we
You
do.
think so? Terry, do you think so?
I think it would be more of a decision if he was asking for a variance closer to the house, but,
No, that's
He's
not.
not.
That's not what I'm asking.
well, that's what I think. I think we strayed a million directions, but we should have just stayed with,
We still-
his only request was for to be able to build on a private road.
State the question.
and
Is the,
Kevin, I'm sorry, you're not gonna like my answer any better than you like Terry's. If a variance comes before us and someone is asking for less than what our setbacks are, and neighbors,
Not
come-
setbacks.
wait a minute, and neighbors come in with concerns, then I think their concerns
Right.
are something we need to consider. if someone comes in, like this gentleman and his wife did, with a variance request and setbacks are not being challenged at all, then I don't think, and no other harm is going to be done, then I don't think that there should be an issue. And as far as property values.
Base it upon setbacks.
Pardon me?
You base it upon setbacks.
I base it upon setbacks or harm, legitimate harm. Like if they were gonna be having a car, garage set up where oil could be leaking in or something along those lines, then I think we need to consider the neighbors. But in this case here, where it was a supposition, if you will, on property value that was never proven on either side, then it didn't sway me.
So you're not gonna, hang on, I got the floor.
Bonnie,
Yes, I
Kevin
got
has
the
the floor.
So what I'm saying is, you're not proposing it on the proposed use would affect neighbors' properties. Nothing to do with setbacks.
You mean as far as for,
You put the criteria of utilizing neighbors' inputs based upon setbacks. I think it says anything that would affect neighbors' properties.
and did you not hear that I said or things that would be damaging to the neighbor's property?
Affect.
You only heard setbacks.
No.
If they're
no,
affecting, if they are
I heard
affecting
damage, but
the neighbors.
damage is not affect. Two different words.
On number 4, where it says values of surrounding properties are not diminished, I mentioned that it wasn't proven to me. That was not proven to me.
Okay, that's 4?
That is number 4.
To me, that is proven.
But she didn't come in with something by a realtor. That was her.
Neither side came,
Correct. So to me, it was mute.
no, it's not mute, it's up to us.
And the applicant has to prove.
Well, and I'm not a realtor, and I don't see anybody's home being improved. We are well aware of that, Bonnie. To me, if my neighbor wants to improve their home, I don't think it's going to diminish my property's value at all. That's the way I'm looking at it. And don't forget, with the exception of Bonnie, none of us are realtors. With the exception of a couple of other people, we're not experts. We are townspeople who are here to try to do the best they can for our neighbors. And I have to go with what my feelings are on this
I agree.
and how well people meet what the law says they're supposed to meet. And I did not feel that that case should have been denied.
Okay. But to me, 5 criteria are the 5 criteria. For whatever reason, if it's one area that they're asking for relief from, or it's 7, you still have to meet the 5 criteria for each of the aspects. And to me, he didn't meet all 5 criteria for that one trigger point, which is the road frontage. I mean, it's how the
That's why
town is.
there's 5 of us.
Right, exactly.
His hardship was, he couldn't build if he couldn't get a variance on it.
So that's
not
where
true.
I think some of us, that's where I think his adequate statement came from, is if it was an empty lot and we said you can't build there, then I would think he did have hardship. He has an existing home, and it's of the similar use to all his neighbors.
And the word adequate, if I can say what I meant, was that the house was not infected. It was not falling down. It was not unlivable, and that's what I asked him.
Yeah, he
And so
specifically asked
are
that.
you going to keep the structure or tear it all down? Now, reasonable would, to put in an ADU, that's reasonable. Put in a garage, that's reasonable. That's a adjustment. This is a blow it out and start all over again.
But he actually told you that it was cheaper for him to take it down and start over than it was to try and fix what he had for a home and add on what he was wanting for a second floor. And I don't know why that wouldn't be considered reasonable. If it's going to cost somebody more money to get what they're looking for a home, I mean, it's like saying, too bad, buddy. You want, but it was a question Kevin asked.
So again, I don't want to go too far astray. I mean, we don't need to rehear the case tonight.
Correct.
So.
They did a pretty good job
So
at it, though.
what we did, the one task before us is there new information here that makes us feel that we didn't follow the process correctly, or we didn't do our due diligence on the 5 criteria? If that was the case, then we would offer a rehearing. But if we feel that as a board, we did our due diligence, we do disagree. I think we're gonna disagree forever.
Till the cows come home.
Right. So, do we offer a rehearing or not? If we don't, then their next remedy is Superior Court. But, really, if we do offer a rehearing, I don't know that it would be a different outcome based on what I'm hearing tonight. I don't know. So let's just
Well,
focus
we
on
wouldn't
that.
know unless we give them a rehearing, so.
That point is true. I mean, they could come back with a bunch more supporting evidence, or change their 5 criteria. I mean, in their notice to us is that they said that it would not, not be any larger, et cetera, et cetera. Those words sort of keyed some of my denial, background. Response to the, I believe, number 5, I don't remember. That's sort of why I asked you if their application would be in here, but, because there were some words there that I don't think they met. I don't think the words were adequate to what they were asking for, put it that way, but, and I just don't recall exactly what that was, but.
Would that help?
Well, let me ask you this,
It wouldn't
Joanna,
help.
or Mike, whomever might be able to answer it. Mr. Chairman, excuse me.
Sure.
A rehearing, would it be on the exact same application and the information we've already had? Or are they going to be putting in a new application and bringing in new information? Because if it's the same, to me, it's a waste of time and money. A waste of money on time on their part, the lawyers and everybody's, because it's not, nothing's changed.
Same.
That was my understanding, and it has to be the same.
It's-
The material of the application has to be the same, and when I say new material, arguments, and set was considered failed. That's why I'm here. Legal opinion on that?
Well, and you're talking about the information that the lawyer's letter then has would be what they would be coming in with information on. Okay.
So did anybody want me to read anything off of
It was pretty straightforward. I mean, they were asking for relief from the requirement for frontage on a Class 5 road. Right?
It had to do with house, the size. It might be number 5, but I don't recall which of the 5 it was, but
Property will remain a single family dwelling, though the ADUs are expected and zoning ordinance. The special conditions of the property exists with the same single family dwelling and access by practical.
word similar is what keyed. It certainly won't be. So I don't think that statement is accurate.
So I do have a legal question. There are two statements in here that I believe are false, blatantly false. I don't know how that gets addressed. Does that get addressed with legal before it goes to court if they do appeal it?
It's the very first appeal.
You could probably bring it to their attention.
All right, I'll,
Which statements are you talking about?
so item number 13, I don't think I would ever say that. That is just not something I would say ever. Deny the proposal because there was not a lot of neighborhood support for it. Never would I say that. Neighbors are here, we hear them. That is not, it is not a popularity contest. I get that. I've been doing this job for 10 years. That is not something I would say.
You did not, I don't remember whether or not you said to deny the proposal because there was not a lot of neighborhood support for it.
I did
But you
second.
did say that there was not a lot of neighborhood support for it.
That's correct. There wasn't.
It wasn't.
This is only the second case that I've ever seen before the ZBA where people were opposed. The other was USA Springs.
It's the first time since I've been on the board. It's an alternate for around, it's about 10 years. It's the first time I've seen when the butters show up with an attorney for 3 months. And she definitely felt like the property values.
I,
They did not prove to me that they were not diminishing the property values. And that's the applicant's burden, is to
Right.
prove to the board, to convince the board.
I did second her motion, but the reason was not for neighborhood support. My support wasn't there. All right, I make a motion that we deny applicant's request for rehearing.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? That's a shock. All opposed? 3-2, denial.
So that means that his next step is,
Superior Court.
so I would just like to make a motion for the record that since we denied his motion to reconsider, I think he should have everything that he needs to appeal to the Superior Court. So I make a motion that we release all our minutes, all our emails that have gone back and forth on this case into the records.
Second.
I mean, that's a matter of course. All of that stuff is subject.
Right, but it should be, we should voluntarily put it in, not have to have them subpoena it or,
Request it, I don't think we should
If he requests
offer
it,
him
we,
anything we don't offer anybody and
Right.
everybody. We should.
Right,
try
I
to
think we
follow
should put it in.
consistently the same.
no, I-
it's just to make the record complete,
I mean,
because,
if they ask for it, of course, we should.
yes.
You have a motion and a second.
Oh, okay. All in favor?
Good Lord. Have you read a selection? How would anybody know what went on private within the board? How would anybody know it even existed?
Because in this modern day and age, they know the board's email, and they shouldn't discuss the case in email.
That's all I wanted to say, was just that for the order. I don't know if, how would they know if they don't know?
They should assume that it could be happening, and they should request. I mean, if I was a lawyer, I'd say, I'd like to ask for that under 91A.
A savvy lawyer would, but your average citizen would not know. Depending upon the age and the complexity use of it, I'm thinking of my parents, they wouldn't have a clue to say were the board members emailing each other on this case.
I hope you would advise them.
They will never have to worry about it.
I do. Oh, yes. Yeah.
You voting?
Yeah. So, all in favor? All opposed? It's not like we're denying them the request.
oh, no, I'll make sure they know it. So I'll advise them. So
Have a board member advise them.
I'll advise them to look behind, all that went on. I thought this case was riddled with just, you know, people that recused, people giving their opinions, I mean, it was terrible.
He was recused as an abutter, that was
He
appropriate.
was recused as a buddy, he was throwing in his 2 cents every time, in emails.
And Terry,
And we
if he's
ignored them.
watching, I'm sure Peter and Joy are watching this, so they will already
Oh,
be
good. I hope they,
apprised of this, because they had to know we were going to be looking at this tonight.
Yeah, just as a reminder to the board, it's inappropriate to discuss stuff of the case. I mean, if you say, you know, here's a legal training I went to, I think it's
Right.
pertinent to tonight's case, that's sufficient. That's not,
but when you
harmful.
recuse yourself, and you're
You
still
should
in
still-
there,
yes.
that's really,
I agree.
that opens us up to a big lawsuit.
Yep, and that's why I said knock it off.
No, I agree, you did finally, but he still didn't,
I know.
even today.
Oh, I didn't see today's email.
Because he sent it to Chris.
Oh.
Well, he did send it to all of us, but it also went to Chris, and he asked him to stop.
Oh, all right. I was busy teaching, so.
Mm-hmm.
Then I came home and cut brush, took a shower, came here. I'd like to go home and eat dinner.
I didn't see the,
So I will go home and read my email, and I'll put my 2 cents in, knock it off. All right, well, thank you guys for your time tonight and your efforts to support our citizens. Even though we disagree, I think it's healthy discourse. And do we have anything lined up for next month?
Yes, we do.
1, 2, 84?
One case.
One case,
Is that person coming back that withdrew, or?
not at this time.
Okay.
Yeah, the requirements for from the policy that we asked for tonight, set in that a bit, as well as some information
But why would he have come under that policy?
Because the policy was adopted 2 weeks ago.
Oh, but I thought he didn't apply before the policy?
He applied while the policy was being worked on, and when there's.
Oh, so he was, yeah, obligated. Like a zoning.
So his name is,
I'm sorry.
I thought the name on the agenda said Jill something.
The owner is Jill.
Oh, but the person who's
owner's
doing the work.
representative is the
Okay.
one
So is the documentation online already? The application?
that's on. The new one?
Yeah, for October, okay.
No, I'm hopefully going to tackle that tomorrow.
So will we be getting a new, hopefully you'll be speaking with planning board and getting this changed, but will there be an updated application that we need to look at for ZBA cases to go along with the policy? Or,
No, they would just,
Is the
they
policy
would
the
just
same?
ask for the relief from the variance,
okay,
as this case did and many, and that's really our big bread and butter cases now, now that we changed the setback requirements for accessory.
okay. Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn if there's nothing further.
I'll second.
All in favor? We all agree.